This is the Fire Dog Podcast.
The views and opinions presented on today's episode are those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.
Welcome, my name is Matt Wilson, and thank you for listening to episode 57 of the Fire Dog Podcast. In this episode, I sit down with Senior Master Sergeant Justin Andreas. Justin currently serves as Deputy Fire Chief at Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. Justin joins me today to speak about his off-duty adventures as an ultramarathoner, social media influencer, running coach, and how he can find time to pursue his passions while still leading a productive and successful Air Force and fire service career. We dig into the power of doing hard things, how stepping into discomfort builds real resilience you can take with you into every area of life. Justin breaks down how he balances work demands with his personal pursuits and while prioritizing passions is key to thriving both on and off duty. It's my pleasure to welcome Justin Andreas. What's up, Justin?
Hey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good to have you on.
Yeah, you got me at 4:57 a.m. It's exciting.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I did that on purpose. I said I can only do mornings because I knew you were in Alaska.
Yeah, I feel like, okay. I'll get you back one day.
Man, one thing I was thinking about yesterday was I had Austin Perry on. We had Austin Perry on the last episode, and now you. And so I guess it pays to know the host of the podcast because I came from Eielson, and I'm just interviewing all Eielson
Yeah,
people.
no, it seems weird. Like you would have thought that when you were stationed here with me, we could have just done it together, in a room at the station. But here we are.
No, we got to be virtual, man. I can't do it in person.
We got to be the most difficult that we can be.
Well, as I mentioned in the intro, Justin is the Deputy Fire Chief at Eielson. He also has some off-duty pursuits.
Just a
Some
few.
could say that, just a couple. Some could say maybe he leans into those a bit more than work.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah,
That's up for debate.
I could see that some would say that. Yeah.
But before we get into any of that, man, tell us who you are, how long you've been in the Air Force, where you've been stationed, whatever else you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, Justin Andreas. I've been in the Air Force for 19 and a half years. Started my first career base off at Barksdale, Louisiana, old Barcatraz, as it used to be called. I put in for all overseas assignments, and I got 45 minutes from my hometown, so that was exciting. But it allowed me to continue my relationship with my girlfriend, then my fiance, and now my wife of 17 years. So there's always positives in a negative sometimes. But from there, I took my career to J-Bear. 1 month after me and my wife got married, we hauled all of ourselves and our lives up to J-Bear and did 4 years in Alaska, 2 deployments from there, 1 to Iraq. Then I went to Mildenhall, England, learned that seasoning is a real thing and it is required on the food over there in England. 3 years there, 2 deployments out of that assignment. From there, I went to Anderson, Guam. I was in the main station for about a year, and then I PCA'd over to the Red Horse Squadron, the 554 Red Horse Squadron, to become a Silver Flag and rescue instructor. And I did that for about 2.5 years. 2019, I left and went to, oh my gosh, it's like I said, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I went to Ellsworth, South Dakota. Absolutely fell in love with that place. And 1 deployment out of there, 3 years there. From there, I took an assignment to Clear, Alaska to be the deputy fire chief, not knowing at the time when I applied for the assignment that the fire chief was going to be released and I was going to be taking over as the fire chief. So that was kind of an interesting assignment as a master sergeant to step into a fire chief role. But being that it was such a small department, but it had an amazing staff on duty that, it was so smooth, and it was, just the transition. Once the fire chief came in, it was great. And then from there, I PCS'd up to where I am now at Eielson, Alaska.
My man loves Alaska.
I do, but you would think that, I don't know. Like, I like it. I love it, but it's not something that I want to call home permanently. But it just, the way that things have worked out, it's really easy to go from Clear to, a remote assignment to either J-Bear or Eielson. I put Eielson as a follow-on option, and because I'd already been to J-Bear. I didn't want a base repeat. And so, it's considered to the Air Force a low cost move. So it was easy. So most people that go to clear, they do a follow-on remote or follow-on assignment to either Eielson or J-Bear.
Which makes sense because you live in Fairbanks. But you and I have talked about this a lot, probably. I think I liked Alaska probably better than you did a little bit. Not to say that you didn't like it, but you're ready to go to warmer pastures, let's say, man. Like, because it gets cold there, and that gets old quick.
Yeah, this will be my 4th winter up here in the interior, and it's, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get to this, but I'm a runner and I run full time outside. And Matt was my running partner last year, and this. A couple days ago, I was out for a run and it was really cold. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, I miss those days of, me and you just going out and passing the time on our long runs when it was 38, 39 below.
Yeah. If you're going to be out there and potentially die, it'd be nice to die with somebody else.
Yeah. At least you have somebody to hold your hand as you perish.
Yeah, man, those were fun, man. I enjoyed that. I feel like I enjoyed that more than running in hot weather.
Yeah.
Which I don't have too much experience with, but certainly a little bit. Because I started my distance running journeys up in Alaska, thanks to Justin and his encouragement, as he's well known for encouraging other people to get out there on the trails or on the roads. And that's what he does a lot on his off-duty time. So we'll jump into it. Ultramarathoner. This one to me, even though I'm kind of in the space, I say a little bit, I was at least before I was, injured. And ultramarathoning to me is just wild, man. Like even knowing people now in it, knowing you and knowing the space a little bit, I'm still fascinated with it. Like, who gets up in the morning and is like, yeah, I'm going to run 100 miles or 200 miles. And in some cases, 300 miles. You're just like, who thinks of this, And then you tell me about like the Appalachian Trail journeys that some of those guys have. And it's just like, I'm going to see if I could do this the fastest. Like, first of all, who has time for this? Like, that's my first question. Like, this guy's like, yeah, I think we could do it in 45 days. Or I think like the records. I can't remember what the records are. I listened to your podcast about it, but who has time to go for like 40, 50, 60 days just to walk and run a trail across the country? Like, that's amazing to me. But
yeah, well, first off, it was 42 days and the record was just
42.
Broken, so.
And that's fastest known time.
Yep.
And then you could do supported, unsupported, right?
Yeah, there's supported, there's unsupported, and there's self-supported.
Okay. And 42 was supported, right? Where he was sending himself things and...
Self-supported.
Self-supported, that's right.
So supported, you have a crew with you. Self-supported, you're doing it all by yourself. You're having to mail yourself packages. You can't take any outside help. And then no support. A long trail adventure like that's over 2,000 miles is impossible to do unsupported because you have to carry everything. So those are typically your shorter trail, like 150 under, where you can carry everything that you're going to need.
Just 150.
Yeah. But those guys that are going out for those fast known time trials are fast. So, they're not out there as long as what, say, I would be.
Right. A few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting a hotel. And all
yeah. Living in luxury here. I'm not carrying my tent. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so fastest known time because nobody really knows, right? I mean, we know, like they know in the community how fast this guy did it or that person did it, but it's hard to say whether or not somebody else did it faster. So that's why they call it the fastest known time, to my understanding. But
yeah, the one that we're referring to is the Appalachian Trail. Jeff Garmar just broke it. And if you think about how crazy it is, he broke the record by 4 hours. And it took him 42 days to break the record. So the amount of math and calculations that it takes. The
margin of error is so small.
So small. 4 hours. I mean, that's nothing when you're thinking.
That's a bathroom break.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, essentially, and he had so many things go wrong, like, on those when you're self-supported, you mail yourselves packages to like resupply yourself. And one of his resupplies that had his shoes in it, which, you change out every 300, 400, 500 miles, didn't show up. So he had to go an extra 300 so miles in a pair of shoes that were already worn out. And, just
which is
things,
very
it's
significant.
not if things happen or if things go wrong, but it's when and how you handle them. And,
Mhm.
and I think, that's a lot of what ultra marathoning is, it's not if something is happening and if something goes wrong, but when and how do you handle it?
Mhm.
And that's what breaks a lot of people down when it comes to
Mhm.
these races is they can't handle when things go crazy and go wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, it's more of a mental sport than it is a physical. I mean, it seems to me anyways, and dabbling in distance, I can certainly say that, you face that mental roadblock, the mental struggle, like so often, and your body is capable of so much. It's really your mind that's kind of telling you to stop.
Oh yeah.
And they're logistical feats too, man. The logistics that necessary for long distance ultramarathoning especially is just crazy to me. And then the equipment and just dialing all that in, it's not just running, man. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Justin is ultramarathoner, and the reason we brought him on was, we talk about work-life balance, and Justin is a full-time deputy fire chief. He has a day job, but he's also getting these things done. And I think that the things that you learn as an ultramarathoner, as a runner, they're transferable to the military, to the fire service, and they can help build resilience and help you be better in your day job, whatever that happens to be. And so I just feel like it was good to bring him on. So man, Justin, tell me about ultramarathoning and how you got into it. Like, how do you start out and getting into something like this?
I have no idea. I was always a lifter. I lifted all through high school. I ran track in high school, but I wasn't serious about it. And then I got into the military and I continued lifting, and I just wanted to be just like your typical bro, your young firefighter, just wanted to be huge. And eventually I got bored with it. I tried the CrossFit thing. It wasn't for me. I tried the like Olympic lifting, also wasn't for me. When I was in the Red Horse Squadron, there was another runner triathlete who was pretty big into the scene in Guam, and he was there was a marathon coming up within, I think it was 4 weeks out or something like that, and they had a half marathon option. And I'd always wanted to do a half marathon. I just thought that was like the pinnacle of fitness, was the half marathon. And I asked him, I said, hey, how long would it take me to train for a half marathon to be able to run it next year? And he's like, what do you mean next year? It's 4 weeks away. You have plenty of time. Now, I'm saying this with going in, I had a lot of fitness. I don't suggest someone 4 weeks out from a half marathon go try to run one. I don't think that's safe or healthy. I had a lot of fitness going into it. I was CrossFitting at that time, so there was a fair amount of running involved in my fitness. So, but anyway, he wrote me a little training plan for 4 weeks. I ran the half marathon. I fell in love with it. I thought this was the coolest thing. My goal the next year was to run the same race, but run the full marathon. I ran it and I hated it. I was like, why would you just double the distance? This is awful. Half marathon's where it's at. And yeah, so that was 2018. 2019, I didn't get to run because I was PCSing, but I PCSed to South Dakota. And through my marathon training, I started listening to podcasts, and I was discovering a lot of podcasts where there's these people that go out and they run on trails. And I never thought to myself, like, running on a trail, you hike them, but running them sounds a lot more fun to me. So when I got to South Dakota, I kind of got in with the running group there. I discovered trail running. And then when you discover trail running, ultra runners are right behind it. And so you can throw a rock and hit 10 ultra runners that have run over 100-mile races in that little run group there. And so when you start hanging out with people that make bad decisions, you yourself start making bad decisions. And so in 2020, before the shutdown, I ran my first ultra marathon. It was a 50K.
Man, half marathon. It's hilarious to hear you say that you fell in love with a half marathon, knowing you now.
Yeah.
you know?
I still do. I still love the half marathon. I think it's a great race. To me, it's a real test of fitness.
It really is, yeah.
The marathon takes a lot out of you if you go run. I mean, this yourself. You've run a marathon, but the marathon drains you to a point where you have to take a couple weeks off. Let the body heal. You're going to be extremely sore. Not saying you're not going to be sore after a half marathon, but the recovery time is a lot shorter than the marathon. And I feel like it's a really good test of fitness. You can go out, you can, blast yourself, and then you're done, in a hour 40, hour 30, 20, whatever you're running it in, as opposed to, 3 hours, 4 hours. And it's so just the drain on the body on the marathon is a lot. So yeah, the half marathon, I still love it, and I still run them to this day.
Yeah, it's the first race, I feel like, in the iteration of races where you have to plan.
Yeah.
You can get away with running a fast 10K with there's people that can get away with running a fast half marathon with nothing. And those people are freaks in most cases.
Yeah.
But it's the first race where you need to have a plan, I feel like, with fueling and with gear, and really a race strategy, like how you're going to pace yourself. You know what I mean? Like there's people that go out and just sprint 10Ks and just, and be okay. The half marathon is the first one where you have to kind of strategize a little bit more. And then even more so with the marathon, which to me, people who do it fast are, they're incredibly impressive too.
Yeah.
I guess anybody that runs fast is, impressive. But anybody that can run long is equally impressive. And you and I have had this conversation, I think, a lot. And it's, for those of you who don't know, like the marathoning scene, marathoners, 26.2 mile and below, half and full marathon, and ultra runners or ultra marathoners are like two different communities. And it's something you don't know going into this. Like, everybody I think is a runner, especially if you're in the military and the fire service. But when you step into the marathoning world and the ultra marathoning world, it's so funny to see the differences between ultra marathoners and marathoners. Like the people are different, the personalities are different, the gear is different, like different shoes, different places that you go, and it's kind of fun, different ways of thinking. So I just found that interesting when I first stepped into space. But
I have a buddy of mine who's also a runner, and he's a sub-3 marathoner. He's a 17-hour 100-mile runner. He's an incredible athlete. Nick. He describes them as two different sports. He's like, the mentality is there, all the gear is different. He's like, yeah, it's like the NFL versus the flag football league, right? They're still one and the same. You're playing football, but they're two different sports. One is all on the road. One's set for pace and that you're super focused. The other one is just more of like a community based. Yeah, you're still out there challenging yourself, but it's more a challenge against yourself rather than the other people. And so I agree with him, and like I'm considering putting myself into a mountain race this next year. And those are races that have over 20,000 foot of climb. Like the amount of running that you're going to be doing in that 100 miles is very slim. I would be willing to say that you'll probably run less than 20 miles in the entire 100-mile race. But, it's like, so that's a completely different sport compared to running a marathon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ultramarathoning is a lot of walking, a lot of hiking.
It's called power walking, Matt.
Power walking, power hiking, whatever you want to talk about.
I'm sorry. I didn't even know my own terms.
But yeah, so, again, I'm fascinated with ultramarathoning, and I think it's a good thing to highlight for you. So walk us through like a 100-mile experience. Like, what does that look like? How do you prepare? What's the experience like during a race of a 100-miler?
Yeah, so first you got to back up and you got to prepare yourself, right? And so you mentioned the preparation phase, and that's the most important phase. So I'm sure we've mentioned it before, but I'm also a trail and ultra running coach, and so I prepare my athletes to run these 100-mile races as well. And I always break it down for them, and I'm like, look, this training period, this is where you run your race. The actual race is where you just go get the buckle. And so the training for a 100-mile race is sometimes 6 months of preparation for that. So the actual training period is probably only going to be about 24 weeks, but you're going to build up to a consistent base of mileage per week, whether, that's typically 30 to 40 miles a week is your consistent base. And then once you hit the beginning of that 24-week training period, that's when you start to ramp up your mileage to get, 50, 60, 70. Some of the big elite, athletes, they're up all the way up to 100, 120, 150 miles per week. Those are individuals that get paid to run, not working full time, also have a family. So, working the work-life balance, I do have a full-time job. I do have a family. I have a young daughter. You have to balance all of that. So that training period is hard sometimes. You're getting up at hours that everybody else is asleep to get in the miles, those lonely, dark miles, the cold miles. You're getting on all this stuff, and you're preparing yourself. You're not only preparing your body, but you're preparing your mind. And I think that's the most important thing when you're training for these 100-mile races is preparing the mind, because we talked about it earlier. It's not when something breaks down, it's not if something breaks down, it's when something breaks down. And knowing how to handle that, because when we go out for these training runs, sometimes our training runs are 30-plus mile training runs that are going to take 10, 12 hours. And we're doing that on purpose to kind of mimic race day conditions. And things are going to happen on those training runs, and it's learning how to handle them, how to prepare yourself for when race day comes and those things break down. You're like, man, I've already been here. I know how to take care of this. So I think the preparation phase is an important phase to highlight, because it's so many weeks of buildup to this one single event that's going to take place in one day.
Yeah, it's the bulk of it, right? Like you've mentioned, it's almost a part-time job. And just for me doing marathon training, not ultra marathon training. And we've talked about this, that the mileage, depending on, who you are and what you're trying to, it's pretty close. You were running a lot more than I was, but I was running 30, 40 and sometimes 50 miles a week. And that is a time suck, man. Like that takes a lot. It's a part-time job. Yeah. That's really, what do you think? Like, probably 95 to 99% of what you're doing is preparing.
Oh yeah, 100%. We run in miles and we discuss miles, but the important thing when it comes to ultra marathoning is time on feet. And so we're running the miles, but we're also looking at the time on feet. And so, in peak training, I'm running 12 to 15 hours a week. That one training run that's like 30 plus miles, that's going to, beef up my training to maybe 20, 25 miles for that week, or 25 hours for that week. But think about, that's 12 to 15 hours a week. And that's not a sustained, I'm not doing that for the full 24 weeks, but I'm doing that for at least 6 weeks leading up to, you kind of build up to a peak. Think about a mountain. You build up to a peak and then you taper. So you're going down, you're lowering your mileage, and then till you have the race day. But at that peak, which is about 3 weeks out from race day, that's where your big mileage is, 2 to 3 weeks before that as well. And so that's when you're getting those 12 to 15 hours, sometimes 20 plus a week to prepare yourself. And yeah, where do you find 20 extra hours in the week to go out and train, but still, work full time, have a family? It's like you're running after everybody has gone to bed. You're running before everybody wakes up. You're definitely going to have to sacrifice a Saturday or Sunday. But when Matt and I were doing some long runs together to prepare for a race that I ended up not running and Matt took a podium spot on, I think we were meeting at 4 a.m. in the morning on Saturdays, and still having to sacrifice a little bit of time because we didn't get back until, 8 or 9 o'clock. And so
stop at the bagel shop.
Yeah. Well, we won't talk about our bagel stops, but
I brought some home to the wife.
Yeah.
Man,
you got to refuel. Come on. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's just, it's a lot of time. And so that preparation period is extremely important to prepare yourself, not only physically, but mentally for the race.
And I think the reason I kind of want to dig into the details of this is we're not suggesting that everybody needs to go out and do this, or, if you're not passionate about something like running, which it seems to me like most people aren't, but I would argue that you probably like it more than you think. But I think that it just provides a good example of like discipline and and building resilience. Like, you're just so much better in life, like when you put yourself through something like this and you plan out your week. So I didn't, when I'm in a training block, I'm not drinking alcohol. Like, I'm going to bed early so that I can wake up early in the morning. I'm sorry. Yeah. And early in the morning, you're putting yourself out in really cold temperatures. You're putting yourself through these challenges every single day, day in, day out. And yeah, it makes you a good runner, but it makes you good in life. Like things that come to you, any kind of challenges come to you, you're like, man, I was just outside in like negative 39 degrees for like 2.5, 3 hours. I think I can handle this problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think it's like such a good example, to building resilience. You know what I mean? So, but talk to me about like 100. So we talked about preparation and how much goes into that. And, there's so much that we could talk about on running, and I would love to, but I really want to, like, what's the experience like for 100 miler, man? Like, what's it like to finish a 100-mile race?
It is an undescribable feeling. It really is. Knowing that you just traversed 100 miles. It's a very emotional experience. Even if you're not an emotional person, you'll choke yourself up because it's such an emotional experience. I recently went to one of the biggest races in the U.S., the Javelina 100, out in Arizona. One of my athletes was running, and I got to pace her. Pacing is just where you jump in and you help out your athlete. You can't carry anything for them. You're more there just for like moral support, making sure that they're still maintaining their pace that they need to maintain. You're just there to help them out, basically. They call them pacers. And so we were running, and she started getting really emotional. And I knew this was coming on because it happens to a lot of people that I've paced before. And we were about 2 miles from the finish line. I could kind of see where the finish line was. And I had her shut off her headlamp, and I shut off my headlamp. It's middle of the night. And I told her, I said, just look up at the stars and just reminisce on the months of training that you've put for. I'm getting chill bumps right now. The months of training that you have put in, the early hours, the late nights, the sacrificing from your family to go do a run, every single thing that you put forth to run this race, just think about it here. And she just like, it overwhelmed her for about 2 minutes. And we just stared up at the stars and we just took it all in. And then we shut it off, and she hauled ass and finished the race in 19 hours. But it was, it's just such a surreal experience that it's so hard to explain the feeling of accomplishment when you finish a race like that. It's overwhelming. They say in a marathon, you're going to go to hell and then you'll come out. In an ultra marathon, you go to hell and you come out, and you go back to hell and you come out, and then you go back to hell again, and you might come out. You might hallucinate from the lack of sleep because the race is going to start, either early, somewhat in the morning to, 10, 11 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you're going to be running until the next day. So you're going to go through the night. You're going to run 12 somewhat hours before it even hits dark. And then so your body's already shutting down. You're already low on fueling. You're not taking in the amount of calories because your stomach, you're walking a tight line with your stomach. And, you might have thrown up a couple times, but, and then you're going through the night. You're seeing things out on the trail that aren't really there. I've had a couple of great hallucinations, and I know I'm not encouraging anybody to run.
Yeah, you're not making a good argument for ultramarathoning right now.
But
sounds awful.
But it's all of this is an experience, and you want it so bad that you're just going to give up all of this, to finish the race. And then once the sun comes up the next day, it kind of just like it revitalizes you, and you're just like, man, I just got this second energy, and then you push through and you finish the race. And
what a physical feat, though, man.
Yeah, it 100% is.
Like, what can you compare? You know what I mean? Like the Iditarod, Sled Dog, and there's the Iditarod Trail Invitational where people run and walk and hike that too. So, like, there's nothing really to compare, like as far as like a physical human feat, climbing Everest, climbing big mountains, But ultramarathoning is just what a sense of accomplishment it must be.
I have never done anything else that has given me the high of finishing on a 100-mile race. And that,
It's funny.
that's including like running marathons, finishing lower ultras. I've run tons of 100Ks, 50 milers, 50Ks. Nothing gives me the accomplishment of finishing a 100-mile race.
But the suffering is so intense, though.
Yep, the suffering can be. I mean, you can have races that go absolutely great. They go perfect.
Right. Even the elites, even the professionals, man.
They do. They suffer. A real famous ultra runner named Courtney DeWalter, she talks about her pain cave, and when she goes into the pain cave, she builds rooms in this. So she describes it as an entire house. Think of it, each time she runs a race, she enters into the pain cave and she starts just building a room within that pain cave. And she's built this entire house out of this cave because she just goes in the pain cave so much. And it's like, man, it's true. And it's like challenging yourself and being able to push yourself past, where the majority of people will push themselves to be able to accomplish a single task is it's really hard to describe how cool that actually is.
She makes it look so easy too.
Oh,
it's just kind of like
easy.
if you're watching like, I don't know, the NBA, the NFL on TV, and you're like, they make it look easy. She makes that sport look easy.
Yeah.
And a couple of those athletes, and so you'd mentioned your athlete getting 19 hours, and I think that was kind of a quicker course from my understanding, but 19 hours is an impressive 100. Like people are like, dang, 19 hours, that's a long time. Like she must have been, no, that's a good time.
Yeah, that's a good time.
Really
so
good
for
100
reference, I've run 6 100s and my PR is 28 hours. And so I'm not by any means fast. I just enjoy the
back
sport.
of the packer, baby.
More mid-pack, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, back of the pack is, in a 32, 34 hour cutoff time. They're in the upper 30s. So, 28 is would be considered mid-pack. But yeah, there's 19 hours is incredible. That's front of the pack. She was top 20 out of the females.
And for reference, what was the winning time for female and male?
The winning time for the male was 12:30, and the winning time for the female, I believe, was like 13:20 or 13:30.
So that's 12 hours. You're talking about what were they at an 8:30 pace?
Yeah, 7:8 pace. Yeah. I know.
Imagine
for
that,
100 miles, and that's running on a trail, so like a hiking trail. With elevation gain. It's not a flat surface. There's rocks. Well, there's not any roots out there, but there's rocks, and
it's about a 12 for reference. Air Force people will understand. It's about a 12 to 13 minute mile and a half, right? Or no?
No, it'd be faster than that. So it would
probably be closer to 11,
closer to a 10 to 11, somewhere in there
for 100 miles.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man. So yeah, man. So talk to me about how ultramarathoning has either helped or hurt you in your military and your fire service career.
Well, I feel like it's helped and hurt, right? But we all know those people that, the smallest little thing comes to them and they freak out. They're like, I can't do this. Or, they just start freaking out. We all know those people. They don't just exist in the fire service. They exist everywhere. But I feel like within our career field, we're thrown things sometimes that are just out there. They're wild. Like, as we've progressed up through our careers, being crew chiefs and, captains on the engines to, being, I know everybody hates this term, but the house mouse and, just progressing up through the ranks of, in the fire service, we've all seen and done the craziest things. But as an ultra marathoner and being able to push yourself sometimes through what we probably shouldn't be pushing ourselves through, you're those little minuscule little tasks or those things that come down, it's like, yeah, we'll take care of it. It's not a big deal. And I think I've noticed a switch since I started like really distance running and being able to like, man, I had an awful run today. I was throwing up and my body just wasn't having it, but I was 15 miles away from my car. Guess what? You got to come back. So you got to figure out how to get back. Your problem
there's no choice
along the way to get yourself back. And it's like that transitions so well into work and into life. I mean, these little things come up and you're just like, cool, we'll take care of it. We'll handle it. And so I think that is, to me, the biggest thing that I have noticed about myself is my demeanor to be able to handle the everyday thing that comes up all the time that is not that big of a deal that everybody else kind of sometimes freaks out about, you know?
Yeah, what an excellent sport to building resilience. And I know I feel like I said that word 4 or 5 times, but it really is. And more so than I was, just like you mentioned it early on in the episode, I think everybody goes through that lifting phase, especially in our line of work. Everybody's kind of a gym rat. And listen, that's a great way to move your body. Any movement of your body is good. Walking around the block, tennis, whatever it is you like to do. But there's just nothing that compares to the level of resilience that'll be built through running and especially long distances.
Yep.
I mean, when you have to figure out how to go to the bathroom, outside when it's cold, you know what I'm saying? Like, or I don't know, let's say you roll your ankle and you're 15 miles from your car, like you said, like you have no choice,
Yeah.
especially when you're in of course we run with in-reaches, in some cases, Garmin in-reaches, where if we get into a legitimate emergency, there's always that option. But even still, like, it's still risky, and there's no guarantee somebody's going to get to you before you succumb to the elements or whatever the case. And it's just nothing like that.
No.
There's nothing like that. And especially in the interior of Alaska, where it's just so desolate, man. Like, you are not on top of the food chain, number one. And number two, like, the elements, as soon as you stop moving, like, your body is your furnace, and it's keeping you warm. The moment you stop moving, like, everything is soaked in sweat, and like, you're going to freeze up real quick. You know what I mean? So just that experience and having to mentally go through that and be cognizant of the decisions that you make, and it's nothing like it, man.
Yeah, I think back sometimes to you and I and a couple of our friends went on a training run last year. It was a 20-mile training run, and it was in the mountains out here, and we put ourselves in this element knowing that it's going to suck. We got there early in the morning. It's pouring down rain. We had, what was it, a 5,000-foot climb right off the bat to get to the top. And then we kind of curved back around and ran back around. But it rained on us the whole time. There was the trail disappeared. You had to just kind of follow the cairns all the way up. There was sections where you're bouldering. So there's just massive boulders that you're having to climb over. And then when we get down to where it's easy running, quote unquote, there's these massive rivers that we have to go through that are waist deep. And when we got back to the truck, you had mentioned something. It was like, and I still think about this today, and I think you call it dirty PT.
Yeah.
And it's like, you talked about how if more people did dirty PT, like willingly put themselves into positions to suck, right? That the world would be such a better place. And I really do. I think about those dirty PT days that are, where you don't really want to go out, but you're out there suffering with your friends. And it's just like, it's a crappy situation. The rain sucks. The rain cleared, but then now you got to cross waist deep rivers. And it's just like, we had fun with it, but at the same time, it still sucked.
It sucked.
And so I recall that a lot and go back to that with that dirty PT. And, and that is some of the things that help you prepare for the races. You look back on that, man, if I did that awful 20-mile run that took 6 hours, then, that's, I can handle this. And for reference, if you're running on the road for a 20-mile run, that's a 2.5-hour run. You're done in 2.5 hours. Where a 6-hour run for 20 miles in the trails, that's with 5,000 or 6,000 foot of climb on top of all the other elements.
You mentioned that race that I podiumed last year, like it was a marathon, a trail marathon, but I think I did it in 5 hours and some change.
Yeah.
I got third.
Yeah.
5 hours,
Yeah.
right? Like it's amazing to be able to do a marathon, to be able to move a marathon, but the elites are going to win that sucker in 3 hours, 2:20, right? Like some of the bigger races, it'd be closer to 2 hours. I did it in 5 hours and got third. So like that just goes to
and they
show
said
you,
the year you ran it was a faster year because the conditions were so good. And so like,
Yeah, it was warm.
it was a bit warmer. And so they said it was a faster year. Their times dropped.
When we say warm, we mean like 27,
Yeah, it was 20s.
28.
It wasn't 40 below.
But when it gets that warm, the snow gets soft and it moves like mashed potatoes under your feet. So that was a challenge,
Yep.
but it was still nice to have warmer weather. So sorry about that. Yeah. Anyways, where was I at? Dirty PT and clean PT. So I think that a good example of this in the fire service is like, if you're like, how do I put myself in a dirty PT? I'm not a runner, man. I don't want to hit the trails. Get in your ensemble and do hard things. That to me is dirty PT, right? Like that is you're not supposed to have a backpack on that weighs 50 pounds, right? An SCBA or whatever the case. You're not supposed to have a winter coat structural ensemble. You know what I mean? Like get into that stuff and go raise a ladder, pull a hose, or, do whatever you got to do. That's dirty PT. It's just something different about doing PT like that than doing push-ups, sit-ups, planks, or running around a track. Now, again, movement is important. Movement is good, but it's just something to be said about the mental resilience built.
It's something you don't want to do. I think that, willingly putting yourself into a situation that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that I remember pulling up to the run you're talking about, the 20 miler. And yeah, like you said, it was pouring down rain. I want to say it was on the cusp. It was in the 40s, maybe. I want to say it was a little chilly.
It was cold.
And I'm thinking like, we're sitting there, we're like huddling under your Subaru like hatch or whatever, like trying to stay dry. And it was such a futile attempt. In my mind, I'm thinking like, I'm about to be soaked in like T-3 minutes.
What are we doing?
Ahead of 20 miles. Like, who cares? Like, just dive into it and get wet already. And I remember like and I looked at my watch and I'm like, I think we were like 3/4 into the first mile and we hit the first like puddle, you know what I mean? Where you hit that, where you could feel the water through your sock. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a long day. But it was, and it was fun. But yeah, then you get to the end of it and you're wading in waist to chest level water because it was a heavy rain.
And you're not even thinking about like, I got
you're
my
like,
sock wet.
Whatever, dude. Yeah. And admin note, wear merino wool socks because those things, there's nothing better.
Nope.
Don't wear cotton ever.
No.
Merino wool is the best for circumstances
Summer
like
and
that.
winter. I wear them year round.
Same here. Well, man, I want to get into your coaching too. So we talked a lot about your experiences in it as an individual, and you hit on it a little bit, the coaching. But first of all, how did you get into run coaching? And I want to talk also about how that's kind of helps you too in your career.
Yeah, so I've always had a coach when it comes to the running thing because starting out running that half marathon, my friend coached me. I've always thought that I can, you don't know everything, right? There's always somebody out there that can teach you something. And so I've always had a coach, and I've bounced around to different coaches, whether I don't like their style or, want something different, or, hiring a speed coach for a marathon versus an ultra coach, completely different. So, but I've always had a coach, and I've always enjoyed being coached, and it kind of takes that guesswork out of it, right? I just log into the app and boom, I got my plan that I'm doing for the day, and it makes it that much easier. They're doing all the work for me, and that's what I've always liked about it. Just take that one aspect out of my life that I don't have to deal with. But I before I was actually certified, and this probably shouldn't have happened, but I had ran a couple marathons, and I kind of knew what I was doing, but not really, because I wasn't certified. But I had some people like, hey, can you build me something to run a marathon? And I built them a plan either for their half marathon or, full marathon. And this was back in 2020. And I thought it was just the coolest thing, because the first time I did it, I was deployed. And, they do the Air Force marathon when you're deployed. They do the half marathon. And somebody wanted to run the half marathon. And so I built them a little plan, and, and I ran with them, but I got to see them succeed in that. And that was their first half marathon. And they were just like over the moon that they had run a half marathon. And I remember that experience when I finished my first half marathon. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing, watching someone trained for this race. I trained with them, but watching them train, watching them go through what I went through my first time, and then watching them succeed and finish the race, I was like, I want to do this. So I chased all the certifications that I could chase, and through my Instagram and all that, I've met a ton of people and kind of fell in with this coaching group, and I now coach for a company called Rising Mountain Coaching. We're a trail and ultra running company that I think we have 5 or 6 coaches, and we have like 50, 60 athletes. And I myself don't have 50 or 60 athletes, but I've just, chased different certifications and met people along the way. And I coach some of my really good friends all the way to people on the internet that I've never met that, want to go do cool things. And so I just think that it's, for me, like, I do charge money, but it's not the money that matters to me. It's watching people succeed. And, I went down to Javelina, like I talked about earlier, and was pacing my athlete. I'd never met her before other than talking to her on the phone and, filling out her plan and working with her for a year and a half prior to that. But I got to meet her and I got to watch her succeed and, place top 20 in the race. And it's just like, that's an overwhelming feeling as a coach. It's not just, like she did all the work. She has all the accomplishments. I'm not saying that my coaching got her there, because it absolutely didn't. I guided her, but she did all the work. And I just think it's just really cool to, work with someone and then watch them accomplish that goal that they have set forward. And that's why I do it.
Run coaching is something that is unique to me too. When I first got into the scene, and you guided me through kind of the early parts of, and I've always been a runner. I did a marathon back in 2009, and I did a handful of half marathons early in the 2010s. But when I dove into it, when I got to Fairbanks, and you kind of guided me through that process, I'm like, the first mention of run coaching, you're like, oh, somebody like on the track, like running next to you, like, how does this work? You know what I mean? Like, or, putting you through the paces. Like my son, we got him into some track coaching here in San Antonio, and, there's a guy with a whistle, like, go,
Yeah.
That's what, so it was interesting to me to learn that a lot of it is virtual, like it's incredible. And I'm sure that's something that came on probably within the last decade or so, especially post-COVID, right? Where you can coach somebody virtually, man. Like you can, especially for running, where it's an individual sport, like, and you can't really coach the mechanics so much. Really, everybody has their own mechanics. I've learned everybody has their own gait. Like there's things that you can do maybe to improve that, but everybody kind of is naturally their own style of runner. It's how far do I go? How fast should I run that? How long should I be on my feet? How often should I be rotating through my shoes? How should I fuel, each hour? What should I bring through electrolytes and hydration, right? Those are the elements that you're coaching, and you can do that virtually. And so it was fascinating to me to learn that there's this whole like ecosystem of different like variables in running, and it's so valuable to have a coach, man, and something I never considered until I ran into you.
Yeah. I do. I enjoy it a lot. And just because we're virtual and I'm not there blowing a whistle and, yelling at you to run faster or slower, but I use an app and it records every single run. I'm analyzing everybody's runs every week. I'm providing feedback on, their runs. Like I can look at someone's race data or run data, for their training run and be like, all right, something's going on here. Like this isn't their norm. Maybe they went a little bit hard here, and I'm like, hey, maybe on this recovery run, we just take it a bit easier next time. And then, providing guidance on, cause I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not going to tell them how to eat or any of that stuff. But, I'm a certified nutritionist, but that really means nothing. Then I just have a certification. So, but I can guide them on, race day fueling, and, I can help them like prepare for that, because you have to practice eating too, because you need to take in 50 grams of carbs plus an hour for however many hours you're going to be running. And so that, that's important to talk about. And that's just little things that, when you're getting into this sport, you may not realize. And so,
Yeah. As someone who's had a coach, it's it's funny you mentioned like you can go through the analytics of the run, and of course you need a watch that can sync to an app, and there's some investment required in running, but she would hit me up like, hey, that one was a little fast, huh? Like like you need to slow down,
Yeah.
or hey, why was it you were a little bit slow today, or whatever the case, you didn't hit this interval or this leg, or you went shorter than so there's a lot of analytics, there's a lot of accountability
Yeah.
that you can, and she lived on the West Coast, and I was down south, and I was in Alaska, and so it's incredible like how much she could mentor and teach me, and I actually never met her in person, right?
Yeah.
But I know her now, and I'm pretty close to her still, and through social media and everything, and still text her on birthday, like happy birthday or whatever. But really a really cool thing within the running community is run coaching. So tell me about like how coaching compares to maybe like teaching and mentorship and leadership in the Air Force and the fire service. Like, do you have to switch your brain to a different dial when you're talking to somebody you're coaching versus somebody at the fire department?
Yeah. So imagine like you as a young staff sergeant and you just got your first airman, right? You just fresh out of tech school, your first airman. You're having to guide them through everything real world Air Force because all they know is basic training in the fire academy. And so, they don't know anything about what tools are on the truck. You send them in to, go chalk an aircraft and they have no idea what's going on. It's like you have to guide them through everything. And that is essentially what coaching is. Now, if you work with an athlete for an extended period of time, just as your young airmen grow into senior airmen and then young staff sergeants themselves, they start to learn the basics, and then they're getting into the more advanced type stuff. But, when you first start working with someone who is new to the ultra scene, has run a couple marathons, you have to switch their brain over to, hey, we're not running fast paces on road anymore. We're switching over to trails now. And so you have to kind of reteach them everything. And so it's very similar to the young airmen coming into their first fire station. They're all excited and they want to, do this and then, but you have to be that supervisor, that young guidance, the young mentor that helps them succeed. And so it's very closely related to that. I actually thought about that when you sent me some notes, and I was like, man, how do you compare this? And I'm like, that's it, because we just got this young firefighter in yesterday, and one of our seasoned staff sergeants was walking her around, and her new uniform didn't fit because she's more petite than it's a real male dominant career field, right? So our uniforms are built for a male body, and so she's a real petite female, and so we had to go get her some special uniforms. And so it's just these little things that you don't really think about, but this young staff sergeant was having to walk her all around and show her the different offices. And, this is the deputy fire chief. You never heard of a deputy fire chief when you're in the fire academy. You don't know what he does or what she does. And so it's just those little nuances that you don't really think about it. But I think that was the example I came up with when you sent me those notes. And I was like, man, this is a great comparison, just seeing it right here with my own eyes.
Yeah, it's transferable stuff. I mean, leadership you do in any capacity. So you're kind of getting a little bit of extra time with it as a run coach. And it's cool that it's also something that you're passionate about and that you know a lot about, and it's a cool little side hustle too, man. It's nice to make a little cash on the side.
Yeah, you can make a little cash, but like I said earlier, that's not the reason I do it.
No, and I know that it's your passion. I definitely know that.
It.
And the opportunity to go to Javelina in Arizona, and of course you're paying your way. It's not like anybody's paying for you to do that. But
the run coaching pays for that. So that's
Oh, does she?
So
okay.
No, she doesn't pay for that, but my run coaching, like
right.
I use that money to
go
to races. And so essentially the run coaching that I do when I get paid, I use that money to go run my races or go to Javelina and stuff like that. So
so it evens out, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Not really, but yeah, maybe.
Probably. Oh man, a pair of shoes once a month.
Yeah, having to fly from Alaska, and
You know what's crazy is the fuel, man. The cost of fuel. Well, of course, shoes are expensive, and so is like the gear. Like nicer gear, merino wool socks, $25 a pair, in some cases. But the fuel that like the gels and things like that. So you get to the point where when you first start out, maybe as a marathoner, as an ultra, you're getting the gels and you're doing the thing because they're convenient. They got everything you need in the little convenient gel that you just pop. And then you start, the months go by and you're like, man, I am dropping some cash on some gels.
Yep.
And so next thing you know, you're out there with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like, or some kid snacks that you got, in the cabinet or whatever.
That dirty PT day, I had a PB&J on top of the mountain, and you were like, dude, what are you doing? And I was like, hey man, this is
whatever
like,
it takes.
This is like 50 cents.
Yeah, I mean, it's tougher to carry that stuff. Like, you're going to have a smashed up PB&J, just, from being in your pack or wherever it is. But hey, man, it's still got that energy in it. So
yeah, I always see this reel that pops up on Instagram every once in a while. And it's like the wife tells the husband to go get into your fancy clothes, go get into your nice clothes. We're going out. And he comes out in his running gear because like, that's our nice stuff, right? I mean,
I thought you were going with the fancy food or something. Go get your fancy food. You come out with some
gels. Yeah. I just bought a box. I spent $30 on a Craftsman like toolbox just to put all my gels in.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I'm having to get fancy now, but
man, some of those influencers, when they do their whole, let me prep for my run, let me show you what it takes. And they got these drawers full of gels, of course, a lot of them are sponsored, I mean, people are sending them stuff, but I'm like, man, that's like a $300 container of gels right there. Like,
yeah,
holy
sometimes
cow.
I talk to my friends when we're out running and it's like, man, like I have about $2,000, $2,500 on my body right now. And it's hard to think about that, but like, you have your, $800 to $1,000 watch you're wearing your, $200 shoes, your $70 shorts and $50, $60 shirt, your, couple $100 pack, your headphones, all the $30 worth of food you're carrying, your cell phone, it's just all that stuff adds up. And it's just like, man, I literally have $2,000 on my body right now. It's crazy. For running,
so not
gear.
A cheap sport.
Yeah, all you need is a pair of shoes. Just go for a run.
Nope. Talk to me real quick about, so you mentioned social media, and man, you've got quite the following, dude. It's impressive, and God, it's definitely labor intensive. I've seen kind of the work you put in. Talk to me about that. How'd you get into it, and how were you able to grow? You got what, 16, 17,000 followers on Instagram?
Almost 19.
19,
yeah.
Man, you're growing quick. Because I remember we were talking earlier in the year, and you said, I'm going to do a half marathon when I hit 13.1 thousand, whatever. I remember you were just sub 10,000, like maybe this time a year ago.
Yeah.
Now you're cruising to 19,000, and it's pretty significant. How are you able to do that, or what got you into it? First of all,
I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you.
I know.
When everybody starts an Instagram page, they're sharing their journey, and that's what it started out with, just sharing my journey of running basically. But I started, I'd say I'm a funny guy. I don't know. Some people laugh at my jokes. My wife is forced to laugh at my jokes, but sometimes I just think of funny things, and so I started putting funny things on the internet, and now it's turned into a community that I have built. I don't really look at it as like I have this many followers or, X, Y, and Z, although my wife does remind me all the time, oh my gosh, you're almost at 19,000. But I think she gets more excited about the followers than I do. But I've built a community, and I think that's the coolest thing. I go to a race, and my Instagram handle is Running and Stash. You can follow me if you want. I need help to get to 20,000. So, but my I go to these races and people come up like, oh my gosh, are you Running in Stash, or are you Justin? Like, can I take a picture with you? I'm just like, that's so cool to me. Not for the recognition side of peace, but they're part of my community. And like, I get messages all the time on Instagram. It's like, I signed up for my first ultramarathon because of you. And I just ran my first ultra because of the encouragement that you put out. And that's what I like doing. It's the same thing with the coaching thing. I try to put out there that ultras aren't that scary. Like, they can be built up to a 300-mile race, but they don't have to be that terrifying, right? You could take small steps and build up to those big races, but running an ultra is not that scary. A lot of times you get, for a 50K, for reference, a marathon, a cutoff time is about 6 hours. For an ultra marathon, which is anything over a marathon distance, but usually the first like official distance is a 50K, is 31 miles. So, right, you're 5 more miles, and they give you about 10 to 12 hours to finish the race. So it's a very doable sport for the amount of time that you're usually given. And that's the message that I wanted to send out. It was like, I ran this ultra marathon, but you can too. It's not that big of a deal. It's really not that hard if you break it all down and do all the steps. Now, we've been talking this whole time about throwing up and pushing your body through all this, but like, I would say I'm a very experienced ultra marathoner at this point, being able to do all the 100-milers. And, I attempted a 200-miler earlier this year, but ultras aren't that hard. Yeah, you got to train for them. You got to put in the work, but that's everything. And that's the message that I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it through a little bit of humor, a little bit of education, and a little bit of inspiration. And, here we are. I think I'm about 2 years into it, and now about 3 years into it. And I just have such a great community that it's just a lot of fun. So, and we talk about pooping a lot. That's the other thing.
Well, it's a big part of running.
Yeah, it's not,
Get
talk
out there,
about like not if something goes wrong, but when something goes wrong. It's not if you poop your pants, but when you poop your pants. So.
But it's funny you say
People
it's not that hard.
Fire Dog podcast can be like, why are we talking about pooping?
What are we talking? Oh my goodness, this place, it's going down the drain. No wonder he's advertising for another host.
Get him off here. Like, let's never invite him back.
It's funny you mentioned, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Well, I think that's a testament to like how much it's a good example of what training day in and day out will do to your psyche.
Yeah.
Like it's not so hard for you because you've put in the work under your feet, you've done it, and you're trying to encourage people to do the same thing. Yeah. It's not hard because you're putting in 50 miles a week.
Yeah.
And you're going through those struggles, and you're out in the sub-zero temperatures, and you're wading through chest deep water. You know what I mean? Yeah, of course, if you get out there, your first time is going to be hard, but through the iterative process, it's going to get easier.
Yeah.
And there's a way to pace yourself. There's a way to prepare. And I think it's transferable to anything, man. And, the more that you prepare mentally and physically, the better and the easier things are going to be for you. The last thing I wanted to touch on, man, like the whole point of us talking about you coming on was like work-life balance. So I know you're passionate about a lot of stuff. You're passionate about ultra running, and you certainly spend a lot of time on your off duty taking care of this stuff, man. How are you able? Talk to me about your thoughts on work-life balance.
I have listened to a lot of books. So I read a lot of books. I don't read. I can't focus when to actually sit down and read book to paper. But I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I probably listen to 50, 60 audiobooks a year. And I read 50, 60 books a year. I think that's a good accomplishment for anyone, And so my pocketbook hurts because I'm buying 50, 60 audiobooks a year. But when I'm out running, I don't listen to music. I listen to audiobooks. And, I will admit I'm kind of a nerd. I listen to fantasy a lot. But I also do listen to biographies. And I think biographies are the most fascinating thing to me. You're listening to someone's life story. And I think that's so cool. But one thing that I always keen in on with the biographies is people talk about how they focus so hard on the job when they first started out and what they gave up to be able to accomplish to where they are now. And they're all of them, their regret is, if I could do it again, I would do this. And it's always spending more time with my family, spending more time on things that I love while I was younger, right? Because your bodies are getting older, you're breaking down, you're not able to go do some of the things that you could do when you were younger. And it's like, and so I have applied that to my life, and I understand that, at work, things come up and you're not able to go home at 4:00 all the time, right? But take advantage of the times that you can. Like, don't take your computer home. Your kids are going to remember when daddy's home, but he's in his office working on his computer. I understand there are times where you have to do that because, in the positions that we're put in, like you have work to get done, and sometimes you can't accomplish it all within the workday, and work has to come home sometimes. But don't make it a habit. Go home when the bell rings, when it's 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever your work schedule is. Go home. Leave work at work. It'll be there the next day. Me and you talk about this a lot, but in the military, we're a number. Somebody is always going to replace us. It's always going to happen. So why are you putting so much time and effort into being replaced? I will give everything to my airmen because my airmen deserve every single thing. They deserve all of the education that I didn't receive when I was an airman. I want them to know the assignment process. I want them to know how to be able to, go into a building and locate the fire. I want them to be able to know everything that they can possibly gather as a young airman. So they, in turn, when they become the supervisors, they can help out their airmen. So I'm going to put my focus towards my airmen. I'm going to put my focus towards my job. But when the bell rings and it's time to go home, going home to my family.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and in our little ecosystem, and especially the military side of the fire service, you can really be intoxicated by the careerism thing, because it's a hyper competitive environment, and that's cool, and I think that draws the best out of us. And yeah, we do play a game to a sense. You and I have done the things that we know we're supposed to do to be able to climb the ranks, and we aspire to climb the ranks, right? But like you mentioned, like, don't kill yourself in that pursuit, because at the end of the day, the only thing that you have left are what you have at home. And for you, it's run coaching, it's running, and your family, right? And so why kill yourself, for something that you're going to leave behind eventually? Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't take it seriously while you're doing it.
Yeah,
of course, like, you want to earn your paycheck and you want to pour into those that are relying on you to be a leader for them, or a contributor in any sense. But like you said, like, you gotta shut it off. And I have a computer at home now. I have an ability to tap in because I have a unique work circumstance now where I can work from home if I need to. But man, like, I don't touch things on Saturday, Sunday, or a federal holiday. Like, I've really committed to that because I found personally that I was unnecessarily stressing myself out. And you go through this. I personally went through this realization as a young company officer and a brand new NCO, where you're just working to the bone, and then one day you wake up and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, for what?
At what cost and for what, right? And there's other people around that can pick up the weight too, and you need to encourage them to do that. And but man, it's something that I'm also passionate about. And so I wanted to have give you an opportunity to be able to talk about that, because clearly you figured it out. You've been able to do a lot on your off-duty time.
Yeah, I don't sacrifice it. I don't sacrifice my time at work to sacrifice my time running. Oh, it's a balance. It is a balance. It's a balance that I walk the tightrope all the time. But no, I think it's important, like when we eventually take the uniform off and, you hang up your helmet, what's going to be there by your side, and that's going to be your family, and so especially now, like, that I have a daughter, like, it was important to me when it was just me and my wife, but now I have a kid that is, learning and growing. She's almost a year old, and she emulates every single thing that I do. And it's just like, man, I want to be there for every little experience that I possibly can. I don't want to miss anything. And I know you carry the same values as well. And so I just can't imagine, like, staying at work till 7, 8 o'clock and, coming home and she's already asleep and, I miss daddy for the day. Man, I couldn't fathom that.
Yeah.
And so I understand there are going to be days that happens.
Sure.
And I'm not, dismissing that, but
they don't come as often.
They don't.
I think as we like to believe. But yeah, and especially the time, and maybe you really have this revelation when you become a parent. Maybe that's why you and I are so passionate about it. If you're single or whatever, but still, if you're single, maybe you have friends and family that you want to spend time with, or
hobbies,
whatever the case, hobbies. Yeah. So yeah, anytime I have the opportunity, I know you're the same, to pass on that work-life balance is so important. always try to, because it's easy to become intoxicated and get lost.
Yeah, and I think I think it's a conversation that more people are having now. I mean, when you and I have been in the military about the same amount of time, and when we first came in, that was it, man. Everybody was staying at work for forever. But I think that toxicity is kind of it's de-evolved from us. I don't see it as often anymore. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I don't see it as often anymore. And I think more people are realizing, like, hey, man, let's just go home. We can come back tomorrow and finish this up. It's it's not that big of a deal.
I've seen a few people go through it, and I ran into a chief at Langley, a chief master sergeant, intel side of the house. Sat down and talked with him for something, I can't remember what, but it was this professional development conversation, and I'm thinking he's going to come to the table with, like, okay, here's how you set up your career for success. Here's what you got to do. And he's like, he basically he's like, take your family seriously and take your off-duty time seriously and make that the most important thing, and they say that the Air Force values is service before self and all those things. And he wasn't dismissing that, but he was like, man, my daughter is 13 and I wasn't there for half of her life, up to this point. And in my, like, that really floored me. I'm like, oh my goodness, and like, you'll never get that time back.
Nope.
It's so finite, and it's such they say, like, that time between 0 and 9 is, from what I've heard, of 0 and 10 is just so, it's just such a, I don't know, it's such a precious time. It's just like, there's nothing like it when a kid is a toddler and a baby and an infant and then a young kid. It's just nothing like it. And you just don't want to miss that. You don't want to sacrifice time away from that unnecessarily. So
for sure.
Well, Justin, maybe we talked about a lot. I appreciate your time. For the listeners, give you an opportunity so you mentioned your social. You mentioned run coaching. You also have a podcast. So
I do it all.
So let's give you a second to tell them about that, where they could find you if they want to listen more, look at your funny reels.
Yeah. So if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube under Running and Stash. It's running _in_stash, because it's all about the mustache. If my boy Ben Perry is listening, then I let him know that you need to have a mustache. And so,
I don't know if that thing's in your eggs or not.
Well,
man.
you gotta push.
We're not going to zoom in at all.
Push it in a little bit, Yeah. So follow me on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok at Running and Stash if you want to hear some stupid reels about pooping and learn about ultramarathoning. I do have a podcast called Golden Hour Adventures. The last hour of an ultramarathon is called the Golden Hours, and we like to highlight the athletes that are out there giving it their all for however long it takes to get to that golden hour. So we feature everyday athletes doing incredible things. We've been doing it for about 3 years, and we put an episode out every week. It's a lot of fun, and we have a couple like sub-series within the main podcast name. So that's a lot of fun. You can find us at all platforms, Apple, Spotify, you name it. We're on there. Golden Hour Adventures podcast. And yeah, I coach for Rising Mountain Coaching. I'm currently full with my run coaching, but we have other coaches that are incredible that have availability. So if you're looking to get started in ultramarathoning, you can hit me up and I can push you to another coach, or we can put you on a wait list and see where we go from there. But yeah, it was a pleasure, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, man, it was awesome. And hey, if you're ever looking for a co-host opportunity, I heard the Fire Dog podcast is hiring, so. But I appreciate it, Justin Bay. We talked about a lot of great things. Have a good one, man. Yeah, take it easy, brother.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fire Dog Podcast. You can find more episodes like this on our website, firedog.us, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on social media. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at the Fire Dog Podcast. That is the Fire DAWG Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow to stay plugged into every new episode. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share this podcast with your friends or coworkers either on social media or right there within your firehouse. This is Matt Wilson with guest Justin Andreas. Till next time, stay safe.